And we are live. Hello, everybody, and welcome back. We've got a really interesting show. Today, I'm here with Max Krupashev. He is the founder of crypto processing by CoinsPaid. We are going to get into the world of people holding crypto, payments with crypto, and why merchants should have a better understanding of why crypto is a major opportunity for people today. Max, how are you doing today? Coming to us live from the conference floor.
Hi, Anthony. Yes, very much pleased to be on your podcast. Hi, everyone, all the listeners, all the watchers. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate you being here. Thank you for taking the time and for carrying a giant banner with you so that you could have the backdrop behind you while on the conference floor. That is amazing commitment to the content. I appreciate you for doing that. For everybody listening in, this is a LinkedIn Live. So as always, if you have any questions for Max or myself about cryptocurrencies, about payments, about merchant acquisition, all of these things, put those questions in the comments and I'll do my best to pick them up and we'll try and address them live on stream. If we can't get to it live, we'll make sure we come back to them in the comments afterwards. And also let us know where you're coming in from. Give us your GMs. Let us know the projects you're working on, the countries you're living in, so we can try and tailor the content more towards the audience that's listening in. So Max, with no further ado, I'd love the guys to get to know you a little bit better to start with. Tell us your Web3 or crypto origin story. How did you find yourselves in this industry, and how did you make your way into crypto processing?
I think I was very lucky to just get curious at a good time in a good thing. So I'm my first education is physics, right? So I'm quite savvy, I would say, with mathematics. I graduated in 2009. Since then, studied a bit of business and so on. And in 2012, I found myself working in IT. We were developing different software projects for clients from America, from Europe. Back then, I was living in Ukraine. We'd have a small software studio with a friend. And in 2012, we were doing okay. And then a year later, in 2013, one of my developers tried to explain me Bitcoin. He didn't do a great job. I didn't get it. I was like, what? But then just a few months later, my co-founder said, you know, Max, my friends are investing a bit of money into mining of Litecoin. At that time, Bitcoin was already not the only one. It was already Litecoin, but that mining in Bitcoin was already switching to ASICs, right? Special chips. But it was before script ASICs were invented. So LTC was still mined on the GPU cards, on the video cards that are right now used for AI mostly. So we just bought a few of them. They already started to be a bit pricey. And then when rigs started to work with all the software, all the overclocking needed and so on, I started to get curious, okay, so what are we doing really, right? Well, like, how are we making money out of electricity? And I started reading about all of these blockchains, minings, Stratum servers, and so on. And I was like, oh my God, this is a cool stuff. And then, like, through this mining, I built another rig. I remember we were building one with my mom because at that time I was still living with her, and we were building the rig at night. She was somehow very curious what her son is doing, and basically we were doing this at night. I still have photos from the late 2013. And since then, I became very entrepreneurial. We started the wallet project with another friend. Then because of that project, I was noticed by CXIO and Ghash. That year, Ghash became the biggest mining pool in the world with 52% of mining power, right? Everyone who is in crypto know that it means centralization of the blockchain, which is not a good thing. At that time, I was working there as a product manager. Over the years, of course, figuring out what technology is, figuring out what businesses are, what businesses do, what payments are, I understood that the main utility for decentralized money is probably payments, right? And I think that this was a good bet. I'm doing only payments in crypto since 2015. So it's been already, 11th year. And I think it's an amazing ride. I was working for a few companies, and after that, we founded crypto processing in 2019.
Fantastic. I love to hear the origin stories, and this is the first Web3 crypto origin story I've heard that involves somebody's mother. So thank you for sharing that story. I can imagine the mining rig on the kitchen table and kind of the various different components and the, oh, so you're going to do what with my electricity bill conversations. But that's a really interesting story. And I was really excited to have this conversation because from a personal perspective, I've worked for one of the two large payment processors. I'm not going to tell you which one, but one of the two fairly well-established ones. I've helped to create payment wallets and payments innovation services for governments. I have a kind of weird fascination with payments. It's something very similar to crypto that when it works well, people won't notice it as a brand name. It's just it's a utility, or it's something that people need, but that shouldn't be complicated, that creates a huge amount of value, but that most people don't understand or don't understand what the wiring is that goes underneath it. So anybody who goes a level deeper on payments, and then I guess also goes a level deeper on crypto, already you're set up for a great conversation. So I'm really looking forward to this one, Max. You mentioned, that was your journey into crypto processing. Tell us a little bit more about what you do. So what is crypto processing? What are the problems you're trying to solve? And what's been the journey so far?
So it all starts with the blockchains, right? So let's go like higher down, right? I would say that we are sort of like Stripe of crypto, right? So we aggregate different methods connected with crypto into one product. So of course, the most obvious are blockchains, right? So different popular blockchains, we integrate and simplify them for Web2 clients. For usual businesses who are not entirely or in any way maybe exposed to crypto industry. Then we have centralized cryptocurrency payment tools, like, for example, Binance Pay, Bybit Pay, CoinsPaid, whatever, right? Because those are also very much around crypto payment methods. We integrate all of those tools, different blockchains, different assets, and centralized checkout solutions into one solution that then sold via gateways, via PSPs, directly via the payment facilitators to merchants, to groups of merchants, to platforms which host merchants, and so on, as an APM. So we are a payment method. We are a payment button. You just add the button on the website, and you get money in the end of the day in the currency that you want, right? You sell sneakers for $100, Nike, Adidas for $100. You add this button, your clients click the button, make all necessary clicks, you get $100, right? For you, it doesn't make any difference if you compare with the PayPal, with Visa, MasterCard, open banking, whatever. You give a button to the client, you get money on the bank account or intermediary account with us, and it's done. Simple as that.
Sounds simple indeed. And again, anybody who works in payments realizes what goes on behind the scene isn't simple, but that's the point, right? The why crypto processing exists, the hard work that you do is to do those aggregation points to be able to provide the on-ramp, off-ramp, crypto to crypto, crypto to stablecoin type of capability. And I'm sure we'll get into that in more detail. All a merchant really wants, as you said, is pay. Let me receive payment. Let me receive payment from the geographies or the jurisdictions that I want. Let me receive payment in the channels that I want. Make the integration easy for me. So again, I think the Stripe analogy is an easy one. And you guys chose specifically people with crypto. And this is a really interesting one for me because for the longest time, again, Bitcoin is the longest and the original example of cryptocurrency. Some might argue that, but in terms of mainstream, right? Bitcoin was the original and best. And nowadays it is known as digital gold. It's more of a digital store of value. Some people would be happy to see that be a store of value, more like a pension. Some people may see that as a payments vehicle or something that they want to pay with because they're not interested in the appreciation or whatever, potential appreciation. You then have the rise of stable coins, which is becoming increasingly more prevalent, better regulated all around the world. You got a lot going on in the background. Your mantra, your ethos at this point in time is to help the non-crypto world meet people with crypto, understand that they're ready to pay, understand that there is a market for this, and that you should have that crypto processing button on the website or on your mobile app or wherever it needs to be, because this is a market that you need to tap into today. Tell us more about that.
I think our business model and this concept, right, of approaching and supporting crypto enthusiasts, right, or people who use crypto for the daily needs is very undervalued, right? When we read news, what we hear, exchanges are doing something, right? Exchanges are partnering with someone and so on and so on. So they are fueling this usage of crypto. It's easy to buy, easy to sell. Then we have this on-ramps who make it easier to buy even if you are not an exchange user. If you are a Trezor, a client, owner, Ledger, Trust Wallet, and so on and so on. Then we have this institutional layer, right? Where Visas, MasterCards making some partnerships with the Fireblocks, they settle USDC and so on. Then we have this bigger, ETF guys who are launching ETFs on Bitcoins and so on, who are fueling this, even more institutional adoption, investor adoption that they can use it, as an investment asset and so on. But it feels like no one is speaking about this layer, how a usual business, which has nothing to do with crypto, is benefiting from crypto, right? Because of course, international trade right now is possible, right? You can use crypto as a transport. Then the customers who, want to do their grocery shopping, who want to pay something online and so on, they also have crypto because they maybe invested through the Cash App, through Revolut. Maybe they received some payments from the friends overseas, and they have these USDCs, or maybe even Bitcoin. And they're just sitting and thinking like, okay, if I want to spend them, I have to go to exchange, sell them, then withdraw to the bank account, then explain to my bank what are this money, where I got them, and so on, instead of just spending them directly. And it's sort of what is the mantra, right? There are, according to different statistics, right? I understand they are a bit fluffy, right? And it's very difficult to calculate precisely, right? We are speaking about more than 500 million people having some sort of crypto, right? And I see this is becoming bigger and bigger every year, right? I'm watching this literally since 2013 every day, right? 2013, people never heard the word Bitcoin. In 2015, they were like, okay, we heard this word. Then in 2015, 2016, Ethereum appeared, right? And then people like, this is blockchain technologies, right? It's not only, because you remember when with Bitcoin was only blockchain, Bitcoin, and crypto meant the same thing. It was synonyms. You can use them interchangeably, right? Right now, the industry is just growing like crazy. So right now we are in the world where everyone knows about crypto. Everyone heard about crypto at least once. And I am stating that you can now buy crypto with any payment method somewhere around you. Either it is with the credit card, either it is with the PayPal, either it is with some other payment methods, with cash, whatever. Many employers pay salaries overseas in crypto, right? Many marketplaces allow the payouts in crypto and so on. So people accumulate crypto. You might say, right, or your listeners now might be listening like, this Bitcoin, we don't buy Bitcoin to pay. And I would say, you're right. You use it as your retirement money, right? You have your 1 Bitcoin, 2 Bitcoin, 3 Bitcoin, 100 Bitcoin. And you want to sell them when you are 60, right? I don't know, or 50, or maybe 45, and buy you whatever you want. According to the statistics that we have and researches that we made in Europe, 30% of crypto holders eager to pay with crypto. I believe that even those who are holding Bitcoins for long term, there would be a day that when they will say, okay, let me buy a car, finally, right? I will sell part of it and buy a car, right? You will most likely either want to pay 0.3 Bitcoin for a car, right? Or you will sell it to stablecoins and pay in stablecoins. The chances that you want to go to exchange, transfer them there, answer some questions where you get this money from, explain how you bought them in 2015, you obviously will not find any receipts that you did it, right? It just creates a bit more, it's just a bit more difficult. So my statement, right, that everyone who has any sort of crypto at some point will want to spend it. If it is operational money that you get salary every month, then you spend it every month, right? If this is something like an investment for you, maybe you will spend it in a year or 2 or 5 or 7, right? And we are right now building this technology, this service, and this distribution channel for you to be able, in 5 years, to buy whatever you want in crypto. with crypto. And I'm not saying that the world need to change. No, those sellers, they will still be selling the cars for dollars, GBP, or euros. Those grocery stores will still be selling you groceries for dollars or euros, right? The world will not change. Just there would be a button that you can now pay with crypto. And the more of you guys are asking clients, I mean merchants, if they have this button, or if you can pay with crypto, or if you see this button somewhere, you click there and you pay, this all increases the statistics. It all increases the adoption of on the merchant mind, right? Because if merchant adds this button and no one clicks it ever, then of course they will be like, okay, we see no sense in this button, right? And there would be, this sort of fleur on the market, right? Okay, that we added this button, but no one is interested. Of course, it's very multi-faced. In adoption among Web2 businesses, I used to think about this as pain and solution. So, of course, we want to sell to businesses, right? This is our business model, right? The more cryptocurrencies are being paid, the more cryptocurrencies are being received by businesses, the higher is our commission, right? So of course, my interest to sell to bigger clients is very high. Some of those potential clients, for them, the pain is very low, right? For example, you knock the door of some retailer somewhere in Sweden, and they will say, you know what? We have open banking, which is free, and we get settlement instantly. And we have Swish, which is pretty much the same, which is also instant, and settlement is instant and it's free, right? We sort of don't need another payment method. So you see the pain is very low. So for them, the incentives to experiment, to figure something out, to integrate something is maybe not high, but higher than the pain, right? Because the pain is nearly absent. If you speak about marketplace, especially who sell something online, who sell something to Argentina, to Mexico, to African countries, to India, and to Japan at the same time, then you don't have to really long explain them why they need crypto. They already know exactly why they need crypto, right? Because some of the people who want to buy something on this marketplace from Japan might not be able to do it with their payment methods, or vice versa. People who sell something on that marketplace, they want to get money. Good example is, for example, esports items, right? This is a big market where people trade all of this, skins from the different games that they play online and so on. Those people are everywhere, right? They play these games, right? They might not be very tech savvy to some extent. They might not have all the bank accounts in the world. They might not have all the currencies in the world. But what they know is that internet has money. And why not use this money of the internet, which is completely democratic money, right? You don't have to ask permission from anyone to use USDT or USDC or to use Bitcoin. I think that is why it was invented, right? That is why it was given to us. Not
some of the early Bitcoin use cases were around gaming and skins. You're absolutely right. That's kind of where some of the early use cases came from. I can't remember whether it was StarCraft or something in and around the same category. But you're exactly right. And I really that's probably the most compelling version of the paying with Bitcoin story I think I've ever heard. And that's not to say I'm a skeptic, but I think it's important to understand who are we talking to, who is the audience, and why do they want to pay? And like you said, at some point, even if it's a retirement fund, somebody at that point is going to want to pay. You've got, as you said, depending on whose statistics, 650 million people holding cryptocurrency of some sort today. That's a decent sized market, right? That's double the population of the United States of America, somewhere in the world. And again, they're not likely to be digitally savvy because they're already engaging with crypto, which is a digital asset, which is by nature digital. You then find yourself in e-commerce, which again, as a place, is a global marketplace for buying and selling. You have people working in the crypto industry, right? The larger our industry gets, the more people are paid in stable coins, paid in ETH, paid in whichever crypto of the project they work for. And you have a wider prevalence of stable coins, which, and any number of large businesses and payment processors, you've seen Uber come out talking about stable coins being just a much cheaper way of doing business today, for themselves, for their different entities. and then I guess also with their partners and maybe even the drivers that work for them, right? So all of a sudden you see every Uber driver in the world being paid with a stable coin. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, wow, that got big quickly above and beyond, as you described, those people who are holding stable coins or cryptocurrencies in developing nations because that's a better alternative than, or it's a more global option for them compared to holding local currency. Starts to become quite a compelling story. The addressable market,
Yeah.
I certainly get it. Let's talk about the merchant side, right? So let's talk about what that story looks like for the merchants, because I'm assuming, that's something that you spend a lot of your time talking to merchants, talking to non-Web3 native businesses about
Yeah.
crypto payments. Talk to me about how those conversations typically go.
There are different stages, of course, right? Some of them are already on the stage where they're like, okay, we understand what it is, right? We understand what is this animal. We understand why do we need it. We just need to figure out with whom do we go on this journey, right? So they are already looking for the supplier. Let's call it that way, right? I like how you said if your product works, it becomes a utility, and then the brand doesn't really matter. I think in the industry we are still not there. So they don't like. It's like with the card acquirer, right? Like you have a card acquirer and it just works, especially in the lower risk segment, right? E-commerces and so
I think there's always a place
on.
for brand. My point was the sophistication of the infrastructure doesn't need to be branded, right? You don't need to know it's blockchain, or you don't need to know it's a 4-party model or a 3-party model. It's
Mhm.
more, there are brands for payments that are like you mentioned. Stripe is one of them. PayPal is one of them. Crypto processing is one of them, right? The branding side of, do I want that experience? Absolutely. Some of the early on and off ramps around crypto, I would deliberately avoid because their on ramp or their onboarding experience was so painful, or the UX around using them was so complicated. I was like, I will go somewhere else because this is a mess. That again is not just around the technology; it's also about the brand and the experience and the UX. So I didn't mean to suggest that there isn't a place for brand. It's more the sophistication underneath it probably gets obfuscated,
Okay.
and
Okay.
the
Okay.
UX probably is more amplified.
Yeah, this is. I mean, this is a constant. This is a constant. I don't want to call it struggle, but this is a constant process, right? This improvement is probably endless. I don't see like I'm looking at our product roadmap. It's never ending, never. And we don't see running out of ideas anytime soon. Okay, so like getting back to the merchants, right? Some of them already know and they go shopping, right? Okay, let's speak with few. Let's Google who is there. Let's review some ratings. Let's speak with few. The biggest misconception here is that they compare providers by pricing only. They seem not to, not to get close to understanding like, okay, what's the per transaction fee? How the gas fees are charged? What is the SLA of the stability of the service? What is the support level? Right. So sometimes we face like sometimes these clients who already know and who's already shopping, they like, okay, we need to buy it as cheap as we can. Right. And this is a bit of a struggle here, right? Because we don't want to be the cheapest, and we understand that when we start saving on everything, we will not have a top brand, right? We will not have a top service and so on. And this is, in my vision, in B2B business, this is the most expensive. I mean, this is the most important to be, very good service in the first place. And then you change the fees, adopt the fees with the economies of scale, right? When you are big, of course, you can be much more flexible and still making money, because business which is not making money, we all know, is not really a business. So this is with this level. Some merchants are very savvy. They already tried few providers, right? They already tried the cheapest one. They already tried the less cheapest one, right? And then they go to the leader and say, guys, we finally want to make it right. Please help us, right? This is my favorite ones, right? Because you're like, okay, guys, you know exactly what your client wants. You know exactly what works, what doesn't work, right? And they are coming like with exact, requirements. I mean, I think we see this a lot in our lives, right? If you go to buy, I don't know, a TV, and you never was buying a TV, and you are not an IT geek, you will be like, I need the big, flat, with remote control, with Netflix. and it's pretty much all of them, right? So you can select any TV and it will have that, right? Some of them are coming, I need exactly this economy level, right? And energy efficiency. I need exactly this smart TV software, right? I need exactly this metrics, OLED or whatever, right? And you understand that when the worker in this shop, he gets that savvy customer, he's like, now we are working. Now we really will sell him the best TV that he wants. So I feel always like that, right? When someone is really like challenging you and saying, guys, I don't want this to work like that, right? I need this to work like this. My customer wants this like that, right? This is what really helps you to become better. That really what brings you, on the edge of your toes, right? And that is where you really fight for the client. You become better, you negotiate better, right? And then you deliver the better service. And the last one, the last but not the least, is the client who has no idea what it is, right? Those are mostly who we approach and say, guys, we want to work with you. We have similar businesses. It's already bringing value for them, to them. Let's do it. And they're like, where do we start? We have literally no idea what to do. And we're like, okay, so this is how it works. This is what usually the price, this is and so on. So like, okay, we go speak with our legal. And then they go, bring it to the legal, and legal says, forget about this.
It's just no.
We will
just
we
stop.
we will never figure out what to do with this crypto, right? These clients, of course, they have this right. Those are mostly those where the pain is very low, right? And they literally have no idea why. And of course, if legal need to do additional work, right? They start like reading about this blockchain, about this crypto. Then they go to the explanations of the local providers and regulators. Like for example, in Sweden, the financial regulator issued an email to all of the financial providers and big businesses. It was an email with an article which they posted on their blog. The title was 5 reasons not to get involved with Bitcoin. And of course, if you are a random lawyer in the random company, right, with no pains on the payments, you just Google crypto and you see this, as the first link in Google from the
High
regulator in the
authority,
country.
official government posts. It doesn't rank higher on the search engine stuff, right? And that's the kind of
Exactly.
messaging you get.
You just don't go further, right? So all of these clients, we usually put them a bit on the back burner, right? We don't really spend a lot of time on that. We understand that they have their payment ecosystem. There is a provider who provides them everything. We start to poach that provider, say, let's discuss how we can be integrated, when we can be integrated, and so on and so on. So yeah, I would say these 3 groups, right? On the understanding of crypto and willingness to onboard. Right? If we go just about willingness to onboard, some of them are coming to us and saying, I want to go live in 2 weeks. Right? So they're like, okay, can we go as quickly as we can?
Nice to hear. And do you find particular industries or particular geographies? I mean, obviously, where you have a national regulator, in the Sweden example clearly has created some trauma or is a bit of a pain point. But do you find particular categories of merchants are more receptive to working with you than others?
I would say this goes probably on the industries, right? So, for example, if we speak about like more luxury goods, right, and more international goods, that is where crypto thrives more, right? I mean, my favorite examples that we all understand probably would be rental of the private jets, right, or sales of the luxury goods. So basically, when people who are definitely on the higher income, right, let's classify them as millionaires, right? They need to make the purchases any time of the day, right? So for example, someone needs to fly to Monaco on Sunday morning, right? And they remembered it only on Saturday evening, right? And they need to make a payment quickly, right? And what is the payment method that that 30,000 will just arrive in seconds, no questions asked, and you get a jet in the morning, right? Probably stable coins, right? I mean, if I had all the payment methods in the world, I would probably use stable coins in this use case. Right, then the luxury goods, right? All those people who earned on NFTs, on cryptos, and so on, they want to buy a Rolex, right? So to be in this elite club, right? Or they want to go buy Aston Martin. or whatever, right? And for them, it's of course better to do it with crypto. If we speak about more operational businesses, right, where people really do it, those would be where a speed of money movements is important, right? Those I would classify mostly sports betting websites, right, where professional bettors, they also want to arbitrage between the platforms, right? They also want to arbitrage between different games. They understand how these things are connected. They need money to move within one day between few platforms, right? They want, maybe in the morning they want to bet on the soccer here, then later to bet on the cricket here, and like in the evening to bet on somewhere in US, right, on the baseball game or whatever, right? And basically for them, using any sort of blockchain-based assets is a game changer. And so with this more high-risk industries, right, that is where the pain already high, right? Because they usually have very, low limits on the cards, a lot of verifications on the, what was happening. Is it money won on the casino? Prove us that you won this money in the casino. So it creates this delay, right, which can happen for days, right? When with cryptocurrency, usually everything is on the blockchain, right? So you see that money are coming from casino. You don't have to ask that question, right? I'm not saying that compliance levels are absent, right? We still do a lot of controls, plenty of controls here. Just with the blockchain is much more, transparent, probably.
Yeah, and you make a really interesting point on both, and I think we'll get into security, compliance, anti-fraud mechanisms in due course. One of the original use cases for distributed ledger technology, non-crypto, was cross-border movement of money. The ability to move client funds or significant amounts of money from one jurisdiction to another to take advantage of different trading opportunities or to manage different contracts and things that needed to happen short term. Okay, we're not talking about large multinationals here, but you're talking about the individual equivalent of that same need or that same pain point, which I think is super interesting because I haven't heard it described as clearly in terms of this is the analogous problem that large banking clients have today with the international banking system, but at an individual level. You don't have to be a high net worth individual for this to be a pain point. You're more just saying, I live a global life. I need capital to be deployed in different places for different needs relatively quickly at a lower cost and lower risk of getting halted, or with a better user experience, shall we say, in terms of speed and efficiency, than going through international bank transfers or using PayPal in places where I can't use it, for example.
Yeah.
Really, really nice illustration.
Yeah, true. Also to add on this, right? I think like really big banks, right? Let's speak about, I don't know, JP Morgan doing international transactions for Audi, right? Because Audi sells cars in US, right? They need to convert those dollars into euros and send maybe in the hundreds of millions or in billions back to Europe. I don't think they have problems, honestly, right? I think this is like they have. I mean, it's still probably not a few dollars a transaction, right? They probably have a bit of a haircut here and here and here,
Or
right?
they're big
But
enough to be prepared to eat the cost. And that's the difference, right?
exactly,
The business case for them in terms of switching, either it's lazily accounted for and it's just part of the cost of doing business, or nobody's presented a compelling case for doing it differently. Whereas Uber now is in that bucket saying, you know what, actually, we're an international business. A lot of our customers moving from one place to another, from one banking system to another. We feel the pain. We're a low margin business. We don't want to have to bear this anymore. And we now have a credible alternative. Audi,
yeah,
they may be in a happy place.
exactly. So, but when we speak even about B2B, right, export import, they pay for the actual raw materials, right? Usually to Asia. Of course, you understand the currency exchanges and so on. Like if you are mid-sized business, right, where you don't have JP Morgan and the banker on the call to give you a favorable exchange rate, you will be losing 1-2% here and there, right? And I mean, e-commerce, of course, is a bit more marginal than Uber, right? But still, because of the competition, because of everything, it's becoming not so easy, right? 1-2% still matter. Like I will give you an example. We have a client who gets settlements directly from Google. So Google sends them money on the bank account. and they are doing YouTube management, right? So they are basically the people who help with the advertisements and so on and so on. But their clients are content creators, studios, also not individuals. Those are businesses who manage channels. And those studios are everywhere. They might be sitting on Bali. They might be sitting in, I don't know, in India, in Korea, or wherever. And they want payments in crypto because they know exactly how to use crypto in Indonesia. They don't need dollars in Indonesia. They have no idea, like, really why they needed them there. And converting them to, what's the currency in Indonesia? I forgot, rupiah. Then it costs them money as well. I was in Indonesia. You cannot withdraw money from the card. I mean, you can, but this is a pain. You need to spend half an hour.
I just did a quick Google check, and it is the rupiah, the Indonesian rupiah. I should know that. I've worked in Indonesia for about 3 months. It was about 10 years ago, but it is Indonesia. For those people listening in who are curious, we have looked it up. Sorry, I'm both host and researcher in this particular show. We need a bigger budget. We need a bigger team. But I get you. Let's jump onto the back office functions here, right? Because as you said, what we want to provide is a compliant, global, efficient, easy to integrate, and low friction system for everybody involved. B2B, B2C, P2P, whatever it might be. This is important. And so if you're going to operate this sort of business, you can't cut corners. It's expected you will be compliant. It's expected you will be able to be part of a financial system. What does that look like for you guys? So what are the requirements of crypto processing? What are the promises that you guys make to your customers in terms of helping to manage security, fraud, compliance?
Yeah, you're right. So this industry was self-governed for a long time, right? So industry was figuring out industry standards before anyone else really said that you now have industry standards. Of course, it was a painful process, right? Because it's like how the driving rules appeared, right? Usually through incidents, right? That's how you figured out how do we drive cars, right? Where people crash, we probably need some rule there. So it's a bit like that, unfortunately. So if we have security, fraud, and compliance, let's go in that order, right? So security, we mostly speak about two things in security. So the first thing in security would be security of funds, and then security of the data. Security of the data quite standardized everywhere, right? We probably don't need to speak a lot about that. It's like you're protecting consumer balances, names, last names, emails, and so on. Security of the funds in crypto is a bit complicated, right? Because all crypto addresses have a key. If you leak the key, you leak all the money, right? So it's very, very easy to lose all the money. In our business model, we are a bit more lucky in the sense because we are a payments business, right? We are not purely in the custodian business where we sit on billions of customer funds. Our customers usually don't store with us a lot of funds because they receive payments and they get settlement. Receive payment, get settlement. But anyways, right, for example, we operate rule, right, that approximately 95% of all the money are kept offline, right? So they cannot be a victim of cyber attack. Then we have all the controls on the customer accounts, right? So their customer accounts cannot be drained quicker than they decided themselves, right? They can have the tools. They have the tools to have automatic settlements. So, for example, if you have over 1 Bitcoin, everything on top is settled automatically to your external wallet, which we assume is a cold storage. So our customers can manage their own cold storage on their own, right? And our system will automatically send them money. Right, then there is a lot of these security controls that we have for employees, right? All of the machines, all of the mobile phones, so you're not allowed to install any software and so on. Then the constant trainings of the employees, what to click, what not to click, what to tell someone, what not to tell someone, and so on. So if I write to someone through the official channels inside of our company, something which might be potentially sensitive, they usually want a video call with me, right? Even though I'm sending them from the usual stuff, they say, Max, let's have a call that I make sure that you are real. Now with AI, probably this even becoming a bit more difficult, right? So we have to figure out something else, right? But this is a lot of the procedures, a lot of the processes. Challenge is here to find operational balance, right? If you make everything very complicated, then your business becomes slow. If you make a very quick business, then all the processes and the procedures usually lead us slowly to fraud, right? Because if you don't have all of those procedures, then you can be defrauded, right? Fraudsters are extremely clever, right? This is the whole industry. For those of you who are in payments, you know about that, right? The moment this is the best QA, right? If there is a problem in your service and it can be exploited somehow, it will be exploited very soon. There's professional groups who are creating accounts, who know exactly where developers usually screw up, right? And they just test those methods. And if they see that those methods are there, at one morning, you will wake up finding a bit of a liquidity hole in your books because system behaved in unexpected way, right? So this is when we speak about fraud. Of course, there are many angles of fraud, right? There is a fraud of our clients where they are defrauded somehow with the crypto that they hold and process through us. This is unfortunately not much we can do, right? This is their operational business models. What we can do is basically see fraud on the blockchain, right? So if the money are coming from weird places or going to weird places where we know which are well known for money laundering, then we might be freezing those transactions or at least flagging those transactions. So we freeze transaction in the edge cases, right? When something really bad is happening, when the money are obviously stolen and we receive them, we don't give this money to the merchant. We just freeze the transaction. On the payouts, we usually give them, a flag that this is potentially a risky address, but we don't block, right? It's up to them to decide basically how they want to use, although we don't know for sure sometimes.
That's really interesting. So you've got kind of a mix of what you would see as kind of traditional bank monitoring systems, the everyday kind of constant grind of what's the latest phishing / human engineering / kind of manipulation type models. AI, I can guarantee, well, actually I can't guarantee, but I have high confidence that I am talking to the real Max today, guys, if you're listening in. We did a little bit of breaking of the fourth wall before we came on camera today. So I have a high confidence that Max is Max and that he is speaking for himself. But it's interesting because, again, back to what we said at the beginning of the show, the complexity, the effort, the compliance, the monitoring, the HR, the calls, the trainings, all of that complexity that's embedded in your business, no one gets to see that every day, right? They'll find out real quick if they get defrauded or if a transaction doesn't go through or if they're found, if the system doesn't work, they'll learn real quick. But this is all of part of the building the crypto processing business or running a modern day fiat and crypto business, that you've actually got to be aware of the risks or the best practices on both sides, which I guess provides maybe an extra overhead of burden of work. But that's the job, right? That's where you provide value. You provide the simple one click, one button by doing all the hard work underneath.
No, you're right. So we have now 310 employees doing this simple business model, right? Doing one thing, but we think good, right? Or at least trying to make it good. But then, of course, like to make it stable, right? We process like all our services, all our software processes one transaction in every 1.5 seconds. So 40 transactions every minute, roughly, right? I mean, it has to be really smooth. It has to go really good, right? Like if 1% of your transaction doesn't go through, that means you have an incident every minute or every 2 minutes, right? Which is insane, right? For this level, you of course need to make that everything works. And all of this, securities, all of this, controls and so on. Of course, then if someone is saying that we are offered the same service for 1%, I tell you should go and take it, right? If you don't see any difference, right, between what we do and they do, you should take it. And what is more, if you like it, I will go and buy that service as well. Because if someone can do it for 0.1%, the same things, they are definitely much more clever than we are, and we should be buying something from them.
I like it. Again, it is a competitive business. It is a business that a lot of people don't see under the hood, but it's necessary. It's growing. It's important. The influence of crypto and stables, I think, will only increase in the months to come. It's not going to go the other way for sure. We're coming just towards the hour, so I'm conscious for those people listening in, thank you for sticking with us. If you have any questions for Max or anything else we didn't cover so far, we've already covered a lot, but if there's more that we didn't cover, or if you have any questions, do put them in the chat now. We'll try and get to them live on stream. If we don't, we'll try and cover them afterwards. We'll try and get into the comments. Max, before we close the show, I have a final question for you. We've gone under the hood. We've gone around the globe. We've gone across the different customer profiles. Let's take a look forward in terms of, obviously you've got an emerging client base at the minute. You've been doing this business for years. You're trying to expand into Europe, into other regions. What more is needed to see wider adoption of that crypto processing button, right? Obviously, Sweden and the Swedish government aside, who clearly we've got some impressions to make. What else do you think is needed to see wider adoption of that big green button?
There are a few things, right? So first of all, I think this is the embracement of crypto by financial authorities, right? Saying this is a normal thing, right? Let's just all together figure out how to get benefits from it, right? So again, Swedish example and American example are completely different ones, right? When America right now, we have a leader who says crypto is not a crime, right? Let's just figure out how to do it in the compliant and legal way. So this is what is needed for us, in order for big businesses, institutions to say, okay, this is fine, it is not illegal, so that the legal officer of the big retailer doesn't go nuts when he hears about crypto and like, oh, we will all end up on the street or even worse, right? So this is one. This is, I think, very important, narrative on the market, because not everyone are professionals in crypto. Even those people who bought some Bitcoin, they might have no idea how it works. They probably wouldn't explain what is cryptocurrency. So they need just, this noise in the market, which is more positive than negative. Then we need people who are asking their usual merchants, guys, would be nice to, if you accept crypto, I would be using it. Right, and of course we need to do a better job on installing the button as well, right? So I think if we have all of these three things together, then we will wake up in a few years in the world where you wake up and you're like, okay, I have 100 USDT. I can spend the whole day from this 100 USDT. I don't really need cash. I don't really need card. I will figure out.
Very good. I as I said, I look forward to the day where we see the big green button more prevalent in the same places you see the other buttons, right? Whether it's the Apple Pay button or the ones we're more familiar with. I see the need for it. I think you've convinced me. It's taken some time, but you've convinced me there's a Bitcoin payments market more than I thought there could be. It's about timing. I agree, but I definitely see the story is at what point do we want to use? Maybe it's not every day, but it will be someday. And so it's a combination of engaging regulators, probably the US as an example, or as a leading financial market, will certainly have a knock-on effect on the rest of the world. I think we can't dismiss that. That is the market the rest of the world was waiting for. I have friends who work for European banks who've been building cross-border blockchain solutions who have just been waiting for regulatory clarity to be able to launch them. In the meantime, they're saying, look, we are not going to operate in a regulatory gray area. We see the value, the business case is clear, the cost of the current system, the latency, whatever it is significant. We do not want to operate this way anymore, but until we have clarity, we're not going to go there. And so I think, that one, slam dunk of a case. I think people power, customer power, maybe it's a little bit less strong when you have the individuals going to a grocery retailer or the kind of the supermarkets type of retailers. But when you talk about the high net worth individuals, the Jets, the international sports betting, these are guys who have significant sway. The consumer profile and the customer power is different. the balance of power is slightly different in those industries. So that's probably why you've seen those ones move faster. And it's fairly clear from today's conversation, Max, that you're not going to slow down anytime soon. It's clear you're on a mission. It's clear that you're here representing the people who have crypto, and thank you for doing that on behalf of a person with crypto. Thank you for continuing to normalize, to make accessible the industry and the work that myself and many others have been doing for years and years and years. We're all believers in this technology having utility, not just holding on to it for the sake of maybe the price goes up one day. This is a new way of doing business, and thank you for doing what you do.
Yeah, of course. I mean, as you said, I'm on a mission, right? The only way is forward. But also, I wanted to end up a bit with the call. So any listeners, right? Anyone who is listening, and you sort of feel that there's something that you might get more value, right, from speaking with us, from using some of the green buttons maybe on your websites, right? Or maybe you know how to get those people, we can figure out something on the partnership level. I would be very glad to speak, or at least to engage my teams to speak. So yeah, would be honored, honestly, to help you guys to increase values of your businesses.
There's the call to action, guys. For those people who have and operate businesses, for the merchants out there who are crypto curious or maybe crypto experienced, but not getting the type of support that they want, who want to engage the crypto audience and want to tap into the market as it is today, 650 million people, a third of which are interested to pay with the crypto they have. That's not small beer. So Max, there's the call to action. Reach out to Max, reach out to his team, go check out crypto processing. Thank you so much for being on the show. Enjoy the rest of your time on the floor at the conference, and stay safe out there.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Anthony. Thanks a lot, everyone. Ciao.